What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on these analysis. We're going to be looking at MSTR and Bitcoin today. So on the long-term trend line, we were holding it pretty well. We're outside of it now, but we haven't had an official close here on the monthly yet. More than likely we will. We'll see. We still have 12 days, so a lot can happen in 12 days. 12 days and 20 hours to be exact. The most recent close was 366. As Bitcoin started to find some weakness after pushing to that new high and then kind of just falling off after shortly. We'll see how Bitcoin recovers. I still think we should have higher to go in the cycle, in my opinion. And I'll go over the two scenarios that I see in my head playing out, which we've already discussed in this video. We'll just talk about it again to kind of have everybody on the same page of where I can potentially see things going in the super bullish case and then the slightly bullish case. When you take a look here on the weekly, you can actually see that we're back underneath this downward sloping trend line. We had a breakout. Looks like it was a retest. We pushed up, found rejection off of this upward sloping trend line. We rejected off of that, and then we closed back inside of this. Now we're back in this area where we're more than likely going to either continue to chop sideways or we're going to continue the trend downward along this downward sloping trend line until we finally break out. If MSTR were to actually keep up with Bitcoin and start to outperform and stuff like that, which it has not been lately at all. If I overlay Bitcoin, you can see the kind of difference that we've had. So I would compare this wick right here to this point right here. So that's my best way of describing this, because remember, MSTR tends to front run Bitcoin. So we'll say this wick here is this piece right here on Bitcoin. So you can see they both dropped, so that's normal. And then Bitcoin recovered practically to the point that it was already at, right? Which means MSTR should have gone back to this region and then maybe rejected. So that would have taken MSTR, back to 450 before seeing some kind of downside, which would have been nice because we would have been back inside of the upward sloping trend line. But that's not what happened. We ended up having divergence from Bitcoin. So you can see Bitcoin did this move here down and then back up, and MSTR just pretty much went down and slightly back up. We can see how they are two completely different moves when you compare them side to side. This one's a V-shaped recovery, and this one is just like a continuation of a downtrend. Almost like when you pull the fibs, like this is like a pullback to the 382 to continue on down. That's kind of where I see it at. So just something to take note of and make sure everybody's seeing this underperformance on MSTR. I'm sure everybody already feels it. They see it in the portfolio if you're holding it, but just wanted to give you that side by side. If MSTR were to get an actual close underneath this level, then more than likely we retest and continue that move down to this next structure at 325 to around 313 or so. And maybe we find some kind of bounce or sideways chop before we make a decision to either go back up or continue that trend. But expect some kind of slowdown at this point right here. So if we were to fall to that region after losing this line here or the wick at 354, then we would probably be touching our 50-week moving average, which is a very strong level. As you can see, we normally don't even touch it too often, but it is a strong continuation of a bull trend. So we definitely don't want to lose that. We want to hold that. Last time we touched it, we got a couple bounces and we catapulted off of it. So hopefully we can see the same thing. But last time we lost the 50 in a major move up, you can see that was actually the end of the move. So I don't want to be the person to, bring that up, but it's the truth of the matter, We had this nice upward sloping trend line. So last time we broke the 50 moving average, you can see that we actually had a pretty significant drop right here, the yellow and pink line. So if we were to fall and break and hold that, maybe that would be a continuation to the downside. We also had a slight trend line that was broken there, and right here it looks like we are starting to form some kind of, it depends. It depends on where we bounce here. If we get a bounce here, then it could, start that trend line, but we'll see. But it is starting to look pretty similar. And like I said, this is a pullback to the 0.5 here after this peak. So we pushed down, pushed up to the 0.5, and then fell off. Here, from the peak, you pull it all the way down. We pushed up to the 0.5 to the 618, the golden zone. We surpassed it a little bit and found rejection off of it. So it's kind of looking kind of similar to this last move over here, just a little bit different. Remember, these moves are never the exact same, but they rhyme. And it's definitely starting to look the same. And we are about to run into this 50 moving average. So we'll see where it takes us on the 50-week moving average. It could take us down further if we lose it. But if we can bounce off of it, that would be very good for the uptrend. Now here on the daily, you can see the 200-day SMA. We're getting relatively close. It's sitting at 353 right now. So if we were to lose that, that's definitely going to push us down lower. But it's such a strong level that you can see that we found multiple bounces off of this before. You can see almost like a triple bottom here, a double bottom. And we got a catapult off of that move there. And you can see that here, happened here as well as here. So every time we touch that 200-day and we hold it, we usually get a pretty strong move off of it. But when you lose the 200-day SMA, you can see major drawdowns. We've fallen underneath our 8-week EMA. When we tend to lose that and hold it, we lose it, get a retest, and hold that retest. Usually we get some kind of drawdown. So you can see on this move here, it resulted in a, this one was initially 40, and then we did the same thing again, and then it was a 25% drawdown. So it happens. We get pretty large drawdowns from the tops. Of course, when we lost this one, that was a significant drawdown. So we'll see what happens if we break, hold it, how far it would take us down if we hold the 8-week EMA. Hopefully we can break back above, hold it, and continue this trend. Because the trend's still bullish overall. We're still looking pretty good. But once we lose this structure, it's going to start looking somewhat like a double top, and then potentially a major double top, similar to the 2021. Not saying that that's going to play out, but I'm just saying that they're looking pretty similar. And then to the downside, And then when you look at 2021, it was pretty similar in the same fashion, where you have the blow off top, push down, a lower push, and then a continuation to the downside. But remember, if Bitcoin continues rallying, then MSTR might have a chance, as long as MSTR actually starts to outperform Bitcoin, which it hasn't done lately, which I'm saying. So we got to be careful. But at the end of the day, when you zoom out very, very far, this entire move is pretty much the same as this move over here. They're kind of playing out a little bit differently. Maybe we're still in this flag here, and it's just an extended out move. The move is just further extended than this move over here, which is always possible. Remember, nothing has to be exact, but we can only hope that MSTR starts to outperform Bitcoin, because that's why everybody's in it. We want to be in MSTR for the leverage to the upside and to the downside, not leverage to the downside and no leverage to the upside. Weekly RSI, we've fallen underneath our yellow moving average, and we're at the neutral zone. Looks like we're about to start creating fresh lows. It looks like a double top as well. As you can see, the M shape being formed. Hopefully on the daily RSI, this is a double bottom that's starting to form. As you can see, we have the first part being formed. Hopefully we can get this thing to turn back around and not continue the trend. Hopefully this isn't a continuation to the downside and we find a bottoming pattern. Now over to Bitcoin. I still think we have higher to go on Bitcoin. I don't know how much higher, but I still think we have higher. We'll see if MSTR catches up and starts to perform with it. We have two scenarios that are more than likely going to play out. This is the scenario I think is more likely, which is it's following this move just in a drawn out fashion, where we touch the top, the bottom, mid line, back to bottom. So top, bottom, mid, bottom, top, bottom, mid, back to the bottom. that's my theory that I'm sticking with right now, that I think is a more likely scenario. But of course, it does not have to play out. That would take us, depending on when we hit it. So if we hit it in, for instance, December, that line takes us to about 150 roughly. And remember, we can always wick past it and then come back down. So for instance, we could push up to that level, wick up to, for instance, 160, even 170, and that turns into a wick after we get a steep fall off. And then, for instance, that's the end of the cycle. Just because this line says 150K, we can always wick past it and then, fall off from there, potentially being the end of the cycle. And then if we were to continue this trend, then we would potentially touch the bottom of this trend line. And depending on when we touch that, that would kind of coincide with a different price depending on when that contact is made. So it could be anywhere from 66 to 80K or something like that. Who knows? Just rough estimates. Don't take this as gospel. I'm more than likely wrong. So the other scenario is the incredibly bullish scenario that we get altcoin season and we get an insane rally like we saw in 17 and 21, which makes sense because you have every 4 years, so 17, 21, 25, and then you have your bottoms 18, 22, 26. So the other theory, which I think is less likely to play out, but it is still a possibility, is we are pretty much still in the beginning of this breakout. Like, we haven't even seen anything yet, and we're going to get some kind of parabolic move like we've seen prior, and that would take us all the way to 380,000 roughly. Could be off plus or minus a wick like we've seen over here and stuff. So remember, always, like I said, these are guides, they aren't exact targets, but that's the incredibly bullish scenario. I don't know if it's the most likely in my opinion. And then coming back down to this channel and then rinse and repeat through the next cycle. You guys let me know in the comment section which one you think is more likely. When we look at MSTR divided by IBIT, it has been underperforming pretty severely. Looks like the bull flag ended up playing out completely, even though I got some comments saying that I couldn't be more wrong. Yeah, I just never understand why people are so sure about stuff. I mean, I never will be the person who's like, oh, I'm 100% sure this is gonna happen. So I don't understand why people like to do that. But yeah, they told me I couldn't be more wrong. I'm wrong, I guess, 100%. But I don't know. This looks like it played out to the T. To be exact, for you people that like to do that and check me and stuff like that, it says 547 would be the exact perfect play out of the bear flag, and we made it to 543. That bear flag has played out. Now, hopefully, that is just the play out of the bear flag. So hopefully we get some kind of V-shaped recovery. If not, like I said prior, maybe we are starting an inverse head and shoulders, which would be incredibly bullish. I would love to see that and get MSTR to start ramping up and doing its job. Because at the end of the day, why buy MSTR if it's just gonna give you exposure to the downside but no exposure to the upside? Of course, if you have a long-term outlook, then this shouldn't even matter to you throughout the next cycle. If you're dollar cost averaging, this probably won't even make that much of a difference. You're just buying at every single price, and then through the next cycle, MSTR will probably rip up again after a long period of down cycle with Bitcoin. So you really have nothing to worry about. But if you're focused on this cycle primarily, then yeah, this is more of a concerning. On the weekly, you're underneath the 50. We got a close, we held the retest, and then we got that confirmed move down further, which completed that bear flag that we were talking about. And on the daily, we're underneath all of them, all moving averages, and our 50 surpassed our 200 to the downside, so that's incredibly bearish as well. But I do think we'll probably come back to retest this 20. I don't know when, but I would say pretty soon to at least get some kind of retest. We normally don't just keep gapping. So or I'm sorry, pushing. We don't just keep pushing down. So like even on a push here, we'll like come back for a retest. Even if it continues on down, it'll come back to see if it can break that level. If not, then it will continue on down. But I think we could probably see something like this. Maybe we push up for a retest, and then maybe we trade sideways and slightly up. We'll see, of course. It all depends on what's going on. We got to see where the MNAV is at. I think last time I checked, it was at like a 1.6 or something like that, which theoretically is actually a pretty good time to buy MSTR. I'm not telling you to buy MSTR by any chance. None of this is ever financial advice anyway. So, and when we look at the dollar, we had this rally up and then we fell back down. It's interesting because Bitcoin started to rally off of the push upward on the dollar here. You can see as the dollar was increasing, Bitcoin started to kind of ramp up a little bit. And then as we found that rejection and started trading sideways, it started to actually get a little bit of a downturn. But overall for Bitcoin, we're kind of in the same spot. We'll see where this takes us, but I mean, the trend's still bearish for now, but the macro trend, which I'll show you in a second, is incredibly bullish. So we got to pull back to the 0.5 to 618. We got rejection once, twice, and now a third time. And this one is an incredibly bearish sign right there with that wick and the body of the candle formed like that. I mean, that's incredibly bearish. So I just don't see us really breaking too much. Like, I can see us breaking this trend line, maybe. I just don't know how much further down we'll go. Like maybe we make it to 95, but I don't think it's going to last very long. It'll be very short-lived because we have this major zone here of an incredible channel that's been established from '08 with multiple touches up top and touches at the bottom. We've had slight deviation to the downside, so we can see that happen. It's happened prior. So it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen at all, but more than likely, this could hold us support and continue up. Yeah, you can see this nice channel, and we're really down here. 96 is really the bottom for this piece right here when you line up these trend lines here. When you look at the dollar for the weekly chart, the SMA, the 20, is pushing down, and that's actually been holding pretty well and supporting price to the downside. And on the daily, we're underneath our 50. We just got to close back underneath. So maybe we retest again, and maybe we can start to continue this move down, maybe to 97.1. And if we break that, I think we can make it to the bottom of the trend line. So it is starting to look like we're actually starting a nice little head and shoulders, actually. You can see your left shoulder here, ahead. Maybe we push up, find rejection, and then that's our right shoulder. And then we have a measured move from there to there, and it takes us down further. We'll see. Let's see if I just do like a quick little, if we do something like that, and yeah, maybe it takes us down to this target over here, depending on how far down this right shoulder goes, because the neckline could, they can be a little slanted. They can be like upward like that. So it all depends on how it's drawn out. But yeah, it could take us to lower targets, to maybe like that 95 region or so, and maybe that's our bottom for the dollar, and then we start to rally up from there, and that's 26, 27, the bear market potentially. We'll see, but I'll definitely keep you guys updated on everything as I always do. Bitcoin dominance is really starting to look kind of weak, at least for now, but this is what we need to see if we really want to see that nice altcoin season, and we want to see that incredibly bullish scenario play out. We have to have an aggressive sell-off. If we don't have the aggressive sell-off, we're not going to see those prices that everybody's dreaming of. But if we do get it, then that will increase the odds of us getting to that top target that I was showing you for Bitcoin, which is, it's a very high valuation, but it could happen if we get the FOMO and the capital flowing through Bitcoin. But also remember, the market cap on Bitcoin is much higher than it was in 17 and 21. So it's a lot more difficult for that to occur, but it is still possible. But yeah, Bitcoin dominance is definitely starting to roll over a little bit, especially after we broke this trend line. Could probably make it a little bit looser. I mean, even then, it's still It's still a broken trend. We deviated once, so we'll see if this is just a deviation to continue back up, or if this is a real breakout to the downside. Hopefully it is, and we can start to see that significant move to the downside and slowly chop. I think if it does occur and this is a real move, it'll happen pretty quick. As you can see, week after week, you just got an aggressive sell-off. And the sell-off is just altcoins outperforming Bitcoin. So it's a rotation of capital. More capital is flowing, like capital is still flowing into Bitcoin, but for instance, just for easy numbers, for instance, $10 is flowing into Bitcoin and $30 is flowing into all other altcoins. So that kind of will cause this like drop on Bitcoin dominance. But overall, if you ever want to just be safe, you dollar cost average into Bitcoin over a long period of time and you'll be okay. I think after every 4 years, if you dollar cost average, I think you're up no matter what. Pretty much every 4 years, if you're buying Bitcoin, you'll be up. So can't go wrong with the king, the OG in the space. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Drop a comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.